And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So happy to welcome Valerie Watson, who is from the Stark County Regional Planning Commission, Stark County Fair Housing Department. Good morning.
Good morning.
Valerie, you've been involved for how long?
Oh, quite some time. I have been with the Fair Housing Department for nearly 29 years now.
Wow.
Yes.
And the Fair Housing Department itself has been around for about how long? A while?
A while. Mm-hmm. I don't know the exact date they started, but yes, they've been around for quite some time.
What drew you to this work?
Well, I'm kind of passionate about the work. I love helping people. And this is one way to help individuals who feel as if they've been discriminated against. And I just love doing it.
So we said before we went on the air, I made the comment, I'm surprised that we even still have to talk about this. I can't believe a person can't go find a house they like and it's in their budget and you buy the house.
That's how it should be. Yes, Susie.
Is it not?
It is not. Actually, I have a poster in my office that reads, "It's okay to consider color as long as it is green." And it's a bunch of dollar bills on that poster. Unfortunately, discrimination is still alive and well in the country and in Stark County.
I just have we do not know what we don't know.
Absolutely.
And it is important to educate ourselves about others' experiences if those have not been the experiences that we've had. Can you tell me some stories of ways that you've been able to intervene and make things right for a family or an individual who want to simply live somewhere?
Well, my favorite story happened a few years ago. Actually, it was complexes located in Jackson Township, in which we found that the owner was discriminating against families with children and African Americans. African Americans were given false information, was told that the properties were not available. However, if a Caucasian applicant would arrive to look at units, they would show them, various
They were suddenly
units.
available?
They were available.
Valerie.
Also, families with children were steered to the basement level units, which it is discriminatory to steer persons in a protected class to a certain floor, to a certain neighborhood, or to a certain building.
Right.
So we did file a discrimination charge against the owner based on race and based on families with children. I believe we had approximately 6 different complainants, and we filed that in federal court. And just 2 months shy of court, we settled the case for a whopping $850,000.
So they were able then to live where they wanted to live. Is that uncomfortable then? If your landlord has already shown their true colors, so to speak.
And that's why most times people who feel discriminated against, they don't want to live in the unit anymore in fear of retaliation. So they don't have to live there anymore. But
they can take their $850,000 and live just about anywhere they want.
Go anywhere else they want to go. Yes. That's one of the questions we ask our clients. Are you still interested in the property? And like I said, most of them will say no because they don't feel they're going to be treated, fairly if they would go ahead and move in.
Now, you've said a couple of categories, families with children, racial discrimination. Are there other kinds of discrimination when a person is feeling that they are being told they can't live somewhere they want to live?
Absolutely. There are, the federal law has 7 protected classes in which a person cannot be denied housing solely because they're in that protected class.
Now, if I were to say to you, what are those 7? Are you able to rattle
Race,
those up?
Color, sex, religion, national origin, familiar status, and disability.
Okay. Yeah.
So if they are denied housing solely because they're in that protected class, then it's discriminatory.
Yeah. Do people know that you are available to be able to contact you? Because I think it would be easy to just first have your feelings hurt kind of feel rejected.
Right.
And that
right.
rattles the self-confidence to go out. Buying a house can be a bit of an ordeal anyway, and you go through all kinds of hoops.
That's
but then
true.
to have that on top of it, do they know there is a place to go to have things made right?
I'm not sure everyone knows. I hope they do. But if they don't know, they always tell their story to someone, a family member, a friend. And then that friend or that family member, they know. Yeah. So they find their way to the Fair Housing Office or to the Ohio Civil Rights Commission, or they can go directly to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Now, Susie, I want to let you know that in Stark County, we have 3 fair housing offices.
Oh, okay.
Okay. My office covers all of Stark County except the city limits of Canton and the city limits of Massillon. Because Canton and Massillon, they have their own fair housing offices.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So if we get a call, I always ask, where you're located or where is the property located. Mm-hmm. If they say the city limits of Canton, then I refer them to the Canton office. If it's in Massillon, of course, I refer them to the Massillon office.
We're talking about something that's either legal or illegal. What happens then to a landlord or a home seller who discriminates? Is it just they get hit with a monetary sum, which might teach them a lesson, but does anything else happen to this person?
Well, Susie, I think that's the most important lesson is to get them where it hurts them the most.
Okay.
And that's in their pocket or their pocketbooks. Because if you have to pay out a large sum of money, are you going to continue to go down that same road and discriminate
One would hope
against
not.
others? Hopefully not. Okay, hopefully not. So that's the main thing. They do have to, because it's a civil issue. So they have to pay a monetary, amount. Oftentimes they have to advertise, in the newspaper, stating that they're equal housing opportunity.
Yes.
Sometimes we monitor their rental activities over a period of time to make sure that they are doing things correctly. We would like to see, okay, who you're renting to now, what applicants are applying. So there are other things as well. But like I said, basically getting that money, most times I believe it deters a person who discriminates.
Yes.
I had an owner to tell me before that he was just going to sell his property because he wanted to do what he wanted to do with his own property because he owned it. But since he could not, he said he was going to sell. And I thought that was best, because there are laws out there, whether we agree with them or not. So if you disagree with them, then it is best to go ahead and sell your property.
Okay, good to know. Let's back up a little bit further. What exactly is fair housing, the term we're using here and throwing it around this morning? What is fair housing? Why is that important?
Okay, well, fair housing is the right to choose housing free from unlawful discrimination. Basically, it's the key to all people having a roof over their heads. All of us need a roof over our heads, regardless whether we're renting property or purchasing, home through home ownership. We all need a roof over our heads. So fair housing guarantees that regardless of a person's race, their color, sex, their religion, the fact that they have children, or because they are disabled, regardless of that, they have a right to choose any housing that they can afford.
Absolutely. And this has been around for how long?
Well, since 1968. Okay, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was assassinated actually on April 4th of 1968. Right. So 7 days after his death, President Johnson signed into law the Civil Rights Act of 1968, which is also known as the Fair Housing Act.
Okay. Oh, I didn't realize that those were called the same thing.
Yes. The Civil Rights Act of 1968, also known as the Fair Housing Act. Yes, it's basically called the same thing.
Okay.
And it was really due to Dr. King's leadership and his actions that urged the president at that time to sign the Civil Rights Act into law.
Yes. Then you also have the Rehabilitation Act.
Yes, there are other, laws that deals with discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Basically, that's the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Oh.
Now, that prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin, okay, in programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance. So the 1968 Civil Rights Act is the strongest law to date.
That added something to the 1964 one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then we have amendments, too. In 1974, the law was amended to include sex or gender. Mm-hmm. In 1988, it was amended again to include families with children and persons with disabilities.
Okay, that was my very next question. There was the Disabilities Act became added on there. Is it important to specify so many individual groups, or can we just say in a law everybody gets to live where they want to live? And does it maybe become people look for loopholes because somebody doesn't fall into one of those seven
they always
specific
look for loopholes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the laws continuously are revised, updated, because there are always loopholes. We have the Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay, it became law in 1990. Now, it's also called ADA. Now, it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities
mm-hmm.
in the areas of public accommodations. That could include your jobs, schools, transportation, the public. But the Fair Housing Act deals solely with the housing, any mm-hmm. housing-related transactions.
Right. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but are there some areas that are really on your radar to be watching for in this area?
No, not areas
mm-hmm.
Per se, but maybe property owners.
Does that end up being what it is, an individual? That it's really, who is that particular landlord? Do they have some kind of something up their craw? Or is it, and as you say, or a property owner? We're not talking about neighborhoods are welcoming in general, I would hope, but there might be a person who's...
Right. It's always that
mm-hmm.
that individual, and there are some questionable landlords
mm-hmm.
out there who some individuals have contacted the office to say they believe that such and such landlord is discriminating against children
mm-hmm.
or against women.
Mm-hmm.
So they're on our radar, and we're kind of keeping a watch.
It's just so good to know that you're there. We just spoke with someone this week about providing something, a meal for homeless mm-hmm. and near homeless in our area.
Right.
And all of the different organizations that are working together to make sure that people have shelter.
Yes.
And then to find out that they might run up against this kind of an obstruction of someone, yes, yeah, sure, we want you to have shelter, just not this shelter.
See,
can't believe that happens.
We were just talking about everyone needs a roof over their heads.
Absolutely.
So who cares what race you are? Who cares if you have children, if you have that disability? We shouldn't care. Shouldn't care.
We belong to one race. It's the human race,
Absolutely.
And we all need a home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We are speaking with Valerie Watson, having a conversation about fair housing. We'll be back after these words. Stay with us. You're listening to Our Community.